He disappeared just 6 weeks after the wedding, leaving a void that spanned decades. 70 years later, Elizabeth, a woman marked by longing, finally discovers the devastating truth about the fate of her great love. What happened back then? And why did it take so long for the mystery to be solved? Despite her few resources, Elizabeth Carter did everything she could to find clues to her husband's whereabouts. Just 6 weeks after the wedding, Jack Carter disappeared without a trace. For many, it would be the end of a relationship, but for Lizzie, it was just the beginning of a tireless search. She loved him deeply and knew that Jack would never leave without an explanation. Something terrible had happened, and Lizzie couldn't ignore it. She knew she would have to step out of her comfort zone and face a mystery that seemed insoluble. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to discover real stories that inspire and move every day. Now, back to the story. The reality was cruel. Jack was far away, and no one seemed to have clear information about what could have happened. Lizzie felt like searching for a needle in a haystack, but she never gave up hope that one day the truth would come out. Even facing the unknown, Lizzie never gave up. 70 years later, she had experienced countless losses and challenges. Still, he never stopped believing that true love prevails, even in the most difficult circumstances. This journey touched the hearts of everyone who met her, showing that hope and love are unshakable forces. Let's start at the beginning of this incredible story, Dayton, Ohio, in the 1940s. It was during this time that Elizabeth grew up, a determined young woman of just 18 years old. She worked as an electrical systems technician at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, a rare position for women at the time. His talent and courage quickly attracted attention. It wasn't long before she met Jack Carter, a young pilot full of dreams. Jack was the son of a base supervisor who quickly realized that Lizzie was someone special. Jack was enchanted with her from their first meeting. Lizzie was different. Her eyes sparkled with determination, her humor was infectious, and her passion for serving her country was inspiring. While other women worried about dresses and parties, Lizzie focused on being the best at what she did, even in a male-dominated field. Her confidence and dedication were unusual, but that only made her all the more fascinating to Jack. The connection between the two was immediate and full of energy, but interestingly, before Jack saw Elizabeth in person, they communicated only through letters. It wasn't exactly love at first sight, but something even more special, love at first reading. At that time, in the 1940s, many people who lived far from each other turned to writing to establish connections. Although they didn't have the ease of today's online meetings, the act of writing allowed them to create deep bonds. In Lizzie and Jack's case, this was just the beginning. In Lizzie's words, there was a vacancy in the production control department, so I took the job. Jack's father was the assistant propulsion supervisor. Soon after I arrived, he suggested that I write to his son, who was training to be a pilot, but I made it clear that I didn't write to men I didn't know, especially military men. Even so, the letters began to arrive. Jack Carter was not intimidated and decided that writing would be the first step to getting to know her. At first, Lizzie was surprised. I wondered who this man was, who had never seen me but seemed so interested. It was something new for me. As time passed, letters between the two became frequent. Jack, who lived in San Antonio, Texas, saw letters as a way to overcome the distance. With each new message, the relationship between them strengthened, with the words creating a powerful bond. Despite the intensity, the letters were never inappropriate. They were sincere, affectionate, and full of shared stories and dreams. This exchange created a unique connection, something rare for the time, but incredibly meaningful for both. Eventually, Lizzie got the chance to meet Jack in person. She was working at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base when suddenly a plane door opened. Jack came down and with a warm smile said, "Hello, Lizzie." That moment seemed like something out of a romantic movie. The two exchanged looks that said more than any words. Jack had taken the initiative to find her, and Lizzie knew right then and there that something special was beginning. After meeting in person a few times, Jack decided he didn't want to waste any more time. He proposed marriage to Lizzie in a simple but meaningful gesture. For Lizzie, the decision was clear. She said, Yes, without hesitation. On September 22, 1943, the couple was united in a simple but meaningful ceremony in Florida. However, little did they know what fate had in store for them. From a financial standpoint, Jack and Lizzie were in a difficult situation. They were so poor that Lizzie could not afford a suitable wedding dress. She wore her prettiest thing, a simple Dayton high school class dress. There was no money for luxury. Despite this, the love they shared was immense, and nothing could shake that. For them, they were destined to be together, and that was more important than any material wealth. But the financial struggle would become an even greater obstacle than they could have imagined. Lizzie and Jack dreamed of starting a family, but a lack of resources made that dream distant. They knew they would need more money to support a home and raise children, but for now, the future seemed uncertain. The plan was for Jack to be the family's provider, but fate would soon change that dynamic. Jack had completed his training as a pilot in the United States Army Air Corps. His time in San Antonio, Texas, had been productive, but now, with his success, came new responsibilities. He would be promoted to second lieutenant, and the war had already arrived. It was time for Jack to serve his country. For Lizzie, this news was a devastating blow. Their newlywed blissful anniversary was about to be cut short. On the one hand, they had fulfilled their dream of becoming husband and wife, but on the other, the reality of war separated them. Jack's duty called louder. They had sworn to protect their country, and now he had to leave. Lizzie watched in silence as her husband packed his bags, saying goodbye with an emotional goodbye. Life seemed unfair to her. After so many years of waiting to meet, now they had to part so quickly. But Lizzie knew it was Jack's duty, and she respected that. He was going to serve with honor, and she would have to wait for his return before building the life they always dreamed of together. The most tragic part was that they both knew deep in their hearts that they might never see each other again. The future was uncertain, and the war would change everything. But Lizzie wouldn't lose faith. She knew that someday Jack would return, and together they would fulfill the dreams they had made. The best were taken from their homes and sent because of their exceptional abilities. But Jack wasn't surprised when the call came. He already knew his moment was coming. In an interview with a website celebrating the achievements of the 354th Fighter Wing, Lizzie tried to recall how she dealt with the terrible news that her husband was leaving for war. She described how her group was taken to a hotel in Tallahassee while the wives awaited instructions. It was a difficult time for Lizzie, and she tried to remain calm, even though she knew her husband was about to be sent away from her. Her husband wouldn't be returning anytime soon, but the army never confirmed exactly where he was. Only after Jack and the others reached their destination in Europe could the wives be informed. But for Lizzie, this would be the last time she would know anything for sure about Jack. War radio and government messages became confusing, and many wives were left without answers. The military sent fake letters to many wives in the United States, and Lizzie was one of them. Although the War Department assured her that Jack was safe and well, Lizzie felt something was wrong. What she knew for sure was that her husband was missing, and communication between the military and families left a lot to be desired. After growing distrust of the information provided, Lizzie made the decision to investigate on her own. She needed proof, something concrete, that Jack was still alive. The words of the telegram she received were a devastating blow, but Lizzie did not give in to despair. Instead, she went through every letter, every message from Jack that she had saved. Jack's correspondence, dated after the day he was reported missing, July 7th, showed that he was alive, or at least had been. Lizzie wouldn't rest until she knew the truth. The telegram informed her that there was no reason to worry, that Jack was being treated and would probably return home soon. But deep down, Lizzie knew the situation was much more complex. She and Jack's parents, although devastated, tried to believe the lie, the possibility that he was in a hospital with no memory or lost in some unknown place. They wanted to believe that Lizzie's love for Jack was enough to bring answers. However, the truth prevailed with force. In March 1945, Lizzie had to face the painful reality. Jack was probably dead. The hope that he would return diminished every day. and she found herself caught between the desire to know the truth and the fear of discovering her final loss. The anguish was unbearable, but Lizzie made a decision. She chose to act. I couldn't wait indefinitely for Jack to come home. Her search for answers led her to contact the International Red Cross. She knew this would be her last chance to find any trace of Jack, any clue as to what had really happened to him. The first time Lizzie contacted the Red Cross, the responses she received were not what she expected. There was no immediate progress, but she wouldn't give up. Lizzie was determined to find out the truth, even if it meant facing the pain of an ending she feared. Lizzie, already tired of so much uncertainty, remembered how, when she started looking for information about Jack, the answers she received were discouraging. She had approached several authorities, but the response was always the same. "We can't do anything for now. He will return before we can help." The feeling of helplessness consumed her. Desperate, Lizzie didn't give up. She looked for those who could really make a difference. Influential people, capable of moving the wheels of government and finding a solution. It was then that she decided to seek help from Ohio Congressman Frank Mitchell, who represented the region in Washington, D.C. Lizzie believed that if anyone could move mountains, it would be him. She wrote to Frank Mitchell, asking him to investigate Jack's situation and help her find out what had happened to him. Lizzie knew that the International Red Cross, although limited in its actions, could still provide valuable information, and if Mitchell's response was not ideal, she would continue her search. The Red Cross, although unable to carry out an official search, did its best to offer useful information, but the news that arrived was contradictory. On the one hand, they said that Jack had disappeared, but on the other, there were reports that he had already been found, dead. The answers Lizzie received only made her more confused, but never caused her to lose hope. Lizzie continued her search, exhausted but determined to find Jack. At some point, she started to wonder if she should give up, but she didn't want to live with doubt, and the only way to find peace was to see Jack's body, whether he was alive or dead. The pain of uncertainty consumed her. Years passed, and in 2005, Jack's fate was still a mystery. Representative Frank Mitchell had mentioned Jack in one of his emotional speeches, saying he was missing in action, but the truth seemed increasingly distant. The team of researchers at the Congress had not been able to get clear answers about Jack's situation, and this only increased Lizzie's frustration, but the mystery was about to be solved. That's when Jack Morris, Lizzie's neighbor and close family friend, showed up with information that would change everything. He revealed a crucial detail about Jack's location, one that had previously been ignored. This was what Lizzie needed to finally understand her husband's fate. Many of Jack's families, like Lizzie, searched for years to bring him home, but without any progress. But then Jack Morris showed up. After investigating the Navy Department's library archives, Jack discovered something essential to the entire investigation. With this vital information, he had the potential to locate where Jack Carther had been all this time. And Jack Morris wasn't the only one who used this library to search for information about Jack Carther. A mysterious French woman had also researched the former pilot, but what did that mean? Could she be someone important in Jack's life? It turns out that the French woman had only begun her investigations half a year before Jack Morris began his search. This left him perplexed. Why would someone from France be so interested in a man who hadn't seen his wife in almost 70 years? This discovery further aroused Jack Morris's curiosity. After so many years of unexplained mystery, it seemed like some big revelations were finally coming, and most importantly for Lizzie, the information actually revealed that Jack Carther had been posted to the United Kingdom. Jack Carther's job was to fly daily across the English Channel in a P-51 Mustang. In time, he was recognized with the Distinguished Steering Wheel Award due to his exceptional work ethic, team skills, and driving prowess. Additionally, he received 2 air medals for his heroic efforts during his service. Among these honors, more good news arrived for Jack Morris and Lizzie. In July 1944, Jack Carther was allowed to return home after completing approximately 100 missions. He then wrote to Lizzie, expressing how much he loved her and letting her know that he was finally on his way to returning to her after being apart for so long. Unfortunately, fate had other plans. On the day of his flight back to the United States, the army told him he would need to wait a little longer. Jack Carther was devastated by the news. He was so close to reuniting with Lizzie that he could barely contain his excitement. However, due to the ship being full of injured troops, Jack missed the opportunity to board. The next ship he could catch wouldn't leave for weeks. After waiting for so long, this obstacle appeared, changing the course of their lives forever. While waiting for the next ship, Jack Carther continued serving in the army, completing more missions in the following weeks. This would include his last mission, which would put his life at risk in an unexpected way. While flying over the French town of Levant, Jack was shot down by enemy soldiers. Spiraling out of control, he knew he only had minutes to make the most difficult decisions of his life. Even though he was in trouble, Jack used his years of experience to try to save what he could. His quick and sharp mind offered him two options. He could abandon the aircraft and save his own life, or he could continue on the flight and risk the lives of innocent French civilians, which would cost him his life. It was the hardest decision Jack Carther had to make. So what did he do? Jack desperately jumped out of the plane, landing in a nearby forest. This way, he would not harm any civilians in the surrounding cities. One of the people Jack saved was a French lady named Valérie Quinal. She was deeply interested in Jack's story because, coincidentally, she was celebrating the 60th anniversary of the liberation of Les Ventes. She found out about him when she was researching war records. The terrible accident took Jack's life, but the people of Les Ventes knew he had saved them. They have honored Jack's memory by keeping his story alive all these years. In town, they didn't have much information about him, so they assumed Jack was a French Canadian, a hero who helped his French-speaking friends. Even without knowing his true story, Jack was remembered as a hero who sacrificed his life to save others. When Lizzie discovered the truth about Jack's death, she didn't hesitate to travel to France to be close to him. Jack's remains were buried in the Normandy American Cemetery, a place that is still visited by those who know its history. The cemetery in Levant has become one of the most decorated in Normandy, with people from all over the world going there to pay their respects to Jack. Lizzie, faithful as ever, visited the cemetery regularly, feeling that her love for Jack was still present even after all these years. She said in an interview, "This story shows that distance and time cannot break true love. Jack was my husband for life, and I will love him forever." Lizzie never gave up on Jack, even after finding out the truth. He was and always will be your eternal love. If you like this story, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Here, you will find exciting stories every day made to touch your heart, and I'm sure that the story that's appearing on the screen now will move you too. Don't miss it.